welcome back to another episode of Cinema D'Amore. I'm your host Chuck, joined by
Justin.
And we're wrapping up the year, finishing it up.
Chuck.
Had to get in some Christmas movies here.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Everyone comes here for Christmas. I know that.
Yeah, done a lot of the Christmas movies we like already, so really had to stretch out there to find some other, interesting Christmas movies that aren't your standard Christmas films that everyone watches every year.
They might be standard if you have TCM or Crunchyroll. I have not watched either of these movies before. That's kind of a spoiler. There's two.
Yeah.
Like last year, there was also two. I mean, some of us thought there was going to be 6. Silly.
Yeah. Yeah, we did John Ford's 3 Godfathers and Satoshi Kon's Tokyo Godfathers. If you can't tell, they're related.
There are a lot of Godfathers movies, excluding Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather movies, that are all very similar with this, like, 3 men and a baby plot.
Because you're saying 3 Men and a Baby is a remake of 3 Godfathers?
You know, it wasn't included, but the reason why Chuck went to record yesterday, and whenever I went to look up to see if 3 Godfathers was playing anywhere, it was playing on TCM at noon on the day that Chuck wanted to record. So I thought, well, I'll postpone this a day if I can. And actually, I'll watch the movie there, and then instead of having good quality. And they said at the beginning of the TCM that there were like 4 iterations of like 4 movies with this plot before John Ford's movie came out.
Before this one, well, John Ford, I think, even made a version of this as a silent film, but it's like a lost one.
I'm including the lost one.
Yeah, there's a lot of versions of this film,
and they all have, like, most of them have Harry Carey.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering when you start watching this movie why it's dedicated to Harry Carey, because he's done a ton of iterations of this movie.
This one we got Junior.
Yeah, we got Harry Carey Jr.
We went so long that Harry Carey died, and we had to get his son.
Yeah. Well, everyone lived to the ripe old age of 50 then, so
yeah.
But yeah, Harry Carey Jr. apparently was not a fan of John Ford's directing style, which was I don't care about actors.
Yeah. So yelling at him a lot.
Yeah, so he almost
go over there, hit your mark now.
John Ford. Hey, the absolute best way to see what John Ford's like, I think, is the fucking interview on Stagecoach. I'll always bring that up.
Behind the scenes, like, interview that they did with him when he was in his, like, 60s or 70s.
Yeah, they did this interview with him. It's such a terrible interview. He's got this eye patch. He's, like, smoking 10 cigars in his living room. And the interview is actually on the Stagecoach Criterion. And I don't remember how long it is, but it's so fucking funny. I think the camera runs out of film at one point, and they just keep going.
Film.
The audio, the audio is still going.
They just keep going with the audio because they had that separately, and it's like he's just complaining about everything.
Yeah, I think I'm not a huge John Wayne fan, is what I'm learning. I am a bigger John Ford fan than I am a John Wayne fan. And
you're a fan of only his John Wayne movies.
Well, maybe, yeah. To a degree. I would say that his are, like, I probably own almost all of John Wayne's various movies. And I mean, his best ones are the ones with John Ford. Yeah, but even, like, the first time I watched The Searchers, I had a hard time with John Wayne, and I think what it is, for me, for my late generation is that he just doesn't come off as a real person. He comes off as this stoic, like, ideal of a person, of what a man should be, at least then, because
I think too he's been I think the three, like him, James Stewart, and Humphrey Bogart are three of the ones that, like, if you watched any Warner Brothers cartoons, they did like a million impressions of those guys, like kind of mocking how they talked and how they acted, to the point that, yeah, when you go back, you're almost like, well, that can't be how it actually is in the movie. And then you go back and watch your movies, you're like, oh, they did just genuinely talk and act like that. Like there's so much caricatures of themselves that, yeah, if you grow up just watching everyone make fun of them for years and then go
they're
back
still
and watch
making
it, and
fun of them.
you're like, oh, that is just how it was. They're not really exaggerating. That is how, like, everyone does when they do their John Wayne impression, that it's like, well, listen here, little partner. And it's like, you watch his movies and that is exactly how he talks. Like, it's not like a joke. That is just how it works out.
Yeah. Like I was going to say, recently there was, well, I say recently, within the last 3 years or 4 years, there was a joke on John Oliver where they showed a clip from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and it's, Jimmy Stewart, and he like collapses to the ground, and it cuts back to John Oliver, and he's like, yeah, he's a shitty actor. And I'm like, yeah, that scene didn't do him any justice. I'll give you that. I don't know how it made the final cut, but it did.
Yeah. This one I think is it's a comedy, which is very, there's not a ton of John Wayne comedies, which this is one of them. Most of his are, I think this one works a little bit better because of the comedic aspects. It's not taking itself as seriously as a lot of his other westerns do, where he's also one of the few times where he's actually the bad guy. That almost never happens in any of his, he's always the hero in any of his westerns. So the fact that he's a bank robber in this film is also a rarity for John Wayne's films.
Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about his character arc. I guess worked well for him that he took the job.
Again, it's surprising because, like I said, yeah, he very rarily plays a bad guy.
You're a good bank robber. Wait until you read this script.
You'll be the good guy in the end. Yeah. So,
if for a comedy, I would say light on the comedy.
Yeah.
Not that it's not funny, but there are a lot of things that outweigh the funny. As I laugh.
Hey, it's, a comedy in 1948 had some different comedy styles. I do
it's
like
no hell's a poppin'.
The opening when they go to the town and run into that guy's who's like pruning his garden, like they're like making fun of his name. It's like, oh, be sweet. Oh, aren't you fancy? Like, and then when his wife's like, Pearly, and I'm like, Pearly, sweet. Oh my god. But then then it does get like real serious when he puts his vest on with it, like that he's the sheriff in town, and they're like, oh, we need to leave now. Stop talking to this guy.
Do you think that John Wayne had a hard time reading or something? Because he read everything in this movie, and to the point where it was like, be sweet or welcome Arizona, where I thought that, like, is there something wrong with him? Why is he verbally reading everything out loud?
I mean, most people were probably, again, it was the 1940s. Most people were probably illiterate. Most people
he did read
illiterate.
the Bible terribly. I mean, he said the words. I he did the bare minimum. He said the words. I don't want to make fun of somebody that's reading a book.
Yeah. They didn't have high education standards back then.
No. But he became a big star. I don't know. I just always try to understand, like he's a bank robber, but he seems like he doesn't move around well. I just try to understand the physicality of a John Wayne character. Like, he's got the stoic down. I would say his lines are down, but it's just like the physicality of him moving around is just like, what? Like between that and there's a baby in this plot. They will get into it, but because there's a baby, there's also a fake baby, and I maybe if that's where you're coming with the comedy, because I was laughing a lot, but wasn't sure if it was supposed to be funny. But there's clearly a baby that's never a baby unless it's a close up shot of the baby.
Yeah.
And yeah, John Wayne like rolling around, falling down while he's holding his baby, and I'm like, this guy just, I I don't know. It's a different time. He's not moving like a real. He's moving like he's half dead or something.
He wasn't known for his physical comedy.
No, I'm not saying it had to be a slapstick comedy. I'm just saying that like he seemed very stiff as a human to the point that I always like when you always see him having shootouts or like ducking for cover. They'd have a great scene in this where they duck behind a sand dune so that the sheriff and his deputies don't see them, but their horses are just fucking standing there. So I don't know. They don't see them. They don't see them, so they did get that. This movie also does a weird thing where there's a few interesting choices, which this is a take on a short story that was a take on The Three Wise Men. So the plot of this is three thieves that rob a bank, and I don't think they had much of a plan. They're wanted people. It sparked, like you said,
they were just trying to go to Mexico.
Sheriff's memory. Yeah. Trying to go to Mexico. John Wayne does not know distance very well. That's why he's got his right-hand man, Pedro. And the kid. There's always like a very inexperienced character, and that's called the kid, and they're always 40. He actually probably at that time was like in his young, like 20s. It's probably just the look. But
everyone looked older back then.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. But there's a couple interesting scenes where they come across this wagon because strategically it's the only way that they can avoid the sheriff. But they also have an issue of like water and, well, I guess mostly water. Like, can we survive if we go this way? And
the kid got shot, so they're always worried about his arm, and he's like getting feverish.
And his horse ran away. So they have 2 horses, 3 men, and eventually a baby. Where I thought it was interesting because they come across this wagon, and I think that possibly one of the worst shots that I've seen John Ford do is there's a reaction shot of John Wayne seeing something, and it cuts to the wagon, like this wagon that's stuck in the sand and everything. And I thought that was a perspective shot, but then he fucking walks down the hill, so it's not a perspective shot.
I had the same thing where I thought that was supposed to be John Wayne looking at the wagon, and then you see him in the background, and I'm like, oh, he's on that hill coming down. I did the exact same thing.
I was like, this is supposed to be John Ford, one of the greatest directors of all time, but
it's so weird. It's such an awkward shot.
But then he looks in the wagon, and he comes back and explains this story. Like, he starts talking out his ass almost.
He gives you like the most exposition.
Yeah. Well, at first I didn't think anyone.
The entire history.
I didn't think anybody was going to be alive, and except for a baby. I did expect the baby, but he starts telling the story. I'm like, how the fuck does he know any of this?
Yeah, how did he get all of that information from that woman in the span of like 30 seconds?
Yeah, so he has a conversation with this woman that's in the wagon with her baby, but John Ford decides not to show it for some reason. And then he's like, she wants to meet you guys. So they all go back to the wagon, and they do have a conversation with her. And I'm like, wouldn't it be easier if they just all came across this woman the first time and didn't have John Wayne explain what happened?
He's got to give the whole story.
But yeah,
they pass it off on Pedro. They're like, you have to get in there and deliver that baby because the kid's got a broken arm. And John Wayne's like, and I'm absolutely not going to do that. So therefore it falls to you. Like, you had a bunch of kids, right? It's like, yeah, I guess.
But I wasn't
well,
a good father.
Get in there.
Yeah,
but I left them all. So he delivers that baby, which that's where you maybe get to like the most some comedy there when after the very serious moment of delivering the baby and the mom dying, being like, you're the godfathers of this child, and then just dies there. And then they give him the baby, and they start reading like, let's see if we can find some supplies here. They find the book on like how to raise a baby, and it's like, which no explanation is given when they read the thing that's like, rub the baby with olive oil or grease. And they're like, I guess we got to grease this baby. Like, what's the? There's never an explanation on like what that's supposed to do. They're just like, hold on, there should be grease for the wagon. Yep, just grease that baby.
I looked up the grease thing, and it's just supposed to be sunscreen. Like, it's supposed to protect the baby. Well, I was just so confused because they talked about greasing the baby, and then that scene of like, it's John Wayne with his fake baby, but the close-up's a real baby, and it looks like they're lathering the baby.
Shot.
Yeah, it looks like they're lathering the baby in peanut butter. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And they're all laughing, and I'm like, I have no idea what this scene is really supposed to be. Besides, they're connecting to the baby, but I was like,
that baby. Yeah,
I'm out of the loop. I don't understand.
Like, I guess that was just a common thing back in the day of greasing the baby that just doesn't translate to today.
Now, if they said put sunscreen on that baby, then we would understand. But apparently, sunscreen didn't exist.
That's how they're still, that's how they're still doing those home births. That's when people say they don't want to go to the hospital. It's because they want to make sure they're greasing their baby.
That's why that's why every baby looks like they're 40 years old when they're 20.
Yeah, because they didn't get greased.
They're like well greased, and it just makes them look 40. It's not genetics; it's the greasing.
Oh god. Yeah, so they have to. Which everyone else, there's another case of the audience puts like two and two together pretty much immediately as to who the woman is and who the baby is, because early in the movie when they met Pearly Sweet, him and his wife were talking about, oh, we're waiting for our niece and her husband. They're like, her husband's a moron. He doesn't know anything about survival, and they should be on their way here. You should have seen him by now. Which, yeah, it's very easy to make the connection that that's the woman is their niece, and the husband that's dead is the idiot husband they were talking about.
Yeah,
but the movie feels like it waits a long time for the people in the movie to be like, oh, that was my niece. Like, that's who this was. But I feel like it's very obvious.
It's a long time for them to find the baby.
Yeah, we're solidly halfway through that movie before they even find the baby.
I do appreciate that most of the characters, though, that we have, like the main antagonist and these three, they're not really dumb. They're strategic in the way that they think, and they start to think a lot alike. And it's kind of like a cat and mouse game for a good bit. The woman names the baby Robert William Pedro Hightower. And I was like, this is a name. That is quite a name.
Yeah. But yeah, you get those moments when he's like, you got to help little Robert. And then the other guy's like, it's Robert William. Pedro has to be like, it's Robert William Pedro.
Yeah. And then later when the town more or less has a baby, they're like, we'll see if the courts keep that name. It's like we didn't name the baby after ourselves. The woman did. We didn't care. We're softies now. We care now, but back then we didn't tell her to use our names.
Yeah. So yeah, that's then they're trying to care for the baby. That's where it gets the most. It starts to relate more to Christmas. They're following the star to New Jerusalem. Some of them die along the way, which I didn't even like. The kid dies because he's feverish and they don't have enough water. So like you expect him to die, but when Pedro falls down again, it's another scene of like somebody falling with the baby, and he falls over that little ridge that doesn't even look like it's 4 feet tall, and he's just like, "It's broken. I'm a goner. Leave me your gun. Take the baby and leave the gun." It's like, is he gonna kill himself already? He hasn't even tried to survive for more than 5 minutes, and he's already like, "That's it. I'm done for. Just give me your gun. I'm gonna kill myself right now."
Yep. Got to blow my brains out.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ! Can you wait till we leave with this baby? Well, I guess it's just him at that point.
Yeah, feels like one of those. Like if he'd have waited 2 minutes, the sheriff would have been like right there to been like, "Oh, we could have saved that guy."
You know what? That's a lot of this movie, though. Like the baby is what changed the trajectory of all these bad bank robber characters. But in the grand scheme of things, I think they're about a day behind. So, maybe the baby died, but if the woman had given birth, the sheriff was there shortly after, so maybe the baby would have made it without them.
Who knows?
It's a mystery that we'll never know. Although that would also be a baby having to survive with a corpse for like 24 hours, and that might be too long. I don't know. I don't know if they could mount her or shit.
Gets cold out there too in the desert in the middle of the night.
Well, you wouldn't know with the way that
or probably a wild animal might.
John Wayne holds that baby, like he has the baby down on the ground, and it's like this windstorm that's blowing over the baby, and I'm like, there's no way that baby's not like freezing to death. It's stiff little plasticky baby body. It was probably, let's be honest, a wooden baby.
Yeah, something. Just something with some weight for them to carry around. Yeah.
I just like thinking that, I mean, practically the fake baby makes a hell of a lot of sense. But it feels like we don't trust John Wayne with the baby, so we just need some visual effect shots for this baby.
Yeah. He's too rough with the baby. We can't give him the real one.
Yeah. We're like, this baby's dead. Oh, we rolled down the hill with it like 5 times. We left it in the wind.
He eventually makes it back, and he's the hero when he gets back for saving the baby.
Yeah, you know what? He is the hero, and I feel like they kind of gloss over the idea of maybe they killed the woman. Like the town seems to believe like it's a he said, she said type scenario. But because he refuses to give up the baby, everyone thinks that he did have good intentions with the baby. So the town like gives him the benefit of the doubt, which the town is right, but I'm saying, how the fuck does the town know that he didn't just fucking steal a baby? But they're all like, hey, yeah, we like you, and so there's more or less a happy ending at the end of this movie. There's some prison time, but it's going to work out.
You got the minimum sentence.
Yeah.
You got the minimum sentence for taking care of the baby.
And then the daughter
of the bank president's like, "Can I write you letters, sir? be my husband."
I do like, you're talking about the bank president. I do like that scene where he's where the sheriff deputizes these like random guys that he brought with him, townspeople.
Yeah.
And then the bank manager or whatever is like, the owner's bitching.
Should you have more people?
Yeah, he's bitching about people, and then he just turns around and he's like, he's going to give us a bonus.
He's going to give us $100.
Yeah. I do like, we're going to get $5. He's like, no, this is tax dollar. These are taxpayer money. It's gonna be $3. I care about the taxpayers.
He's like, they don't pay me to kill people. I don't take the taxpayer money for that stuff.
Yeah. I will say though, I really liked. Maybe it just comes secondhand to John Ford at this point, but I thought it was a very beautiful looking movie. Like it looks good. Like everything that
Yeah.
they're at, everything looks very practical, but nothing looks like
The
a
thing when
set.
they're in those sandstorms are like, I'm almost like, did they just legitimately go out during a sandstorm? Because it looks insane, like with everything whipping around them. Like how much work that would have taken to do in a studio to make it look that real.
I mean, he might
Then
have.
have like a ton of
Nothing
high
looks
powered fans.
the town.
Yeah.
Um, they were making a hell of a lot of westerns back then, so they probably did have like a made. It was probably one of those towns that they had set up for filming westerns. But
Probably.
even like the small, like, well, I guess it's the same town, but when they're in the part of the town where they're at the sheriff's house, like that is such a good looking set or wherever the hell that they're at. Like it just, even the garden and stuff. Like I've watched so many movies from this time where it would have been fake as hell. Like you would have seen the fake backdrop. You would know that the house was painted or just the front of the house. And this, I'm like, I think they're really at some person's house where they filmed this scene. Also, is Curly a name for like just dumb people?
It's just a default name for for anyone that's an idiot.
Because the guy's like, the wife calls him Curly, and then John Wayne makes fun of him.
No, his name's Pearly.
Oh, he's saying Pearly?
Yes.
Okay, well, then I just can't hear. I thought he called
Curly's
him
the other guy.
Well, no,
Curly's
this is
the
where I
guy
was
that they
going to
keep
go.
telling to like get the donkey on the train, and he's like, Curly, get that donkey on the train.
So before we even saw Curly, I thought they were also calling the sheriff Be Sweet Curly, and I didn't realize they were calling him Pearly. And then later
That's why they're making fun of him, because they're like, his name's so feminine that his name's Pearly Sweet.
And then they had I was like, Curly Sweet still sounded pretty feminine, but I was like, it wasn't. I'll tell you, it wasn't feminine enough for me to make fun of the guy. But then later, when we meet Curly, I'm like, I thought that was our second Curly, and I'm like, he's dumb, and I was like, oh, it just must be a nickname associated to everybody that's slightly dumb. So the sheriff, well, so it pissed the sheriff off. But I was gonna say, well, I'm wrong. I had no subtitles with TCM, so I was at a slight disadvantage. Although I felt like I heard everything else. Like you were talking about the way that John Wayne speaks, I followed pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, beautifully shot. I like how the train that they use, and then I don't know what the way station or whatever the hell that is. They more or less redress it to look like another one. This movie made me not want to live in these times at all. When they see the big water tank and John Wayne's talking about swimming in it, I'm like, okay, I wouldn't want to live in those times where
Probably
some dirty ass man was swimming in my drinking water. But
I mean, it's just a risk you take.
Yeah. Oh, and at the very beginning of this movie, when they get off their horses by like this little pond or whatever it is, and John Wayne just walks through the water. I looked at Steph and I'm like, did they just have really good shoes back then or what? Because like, I feel like the normal person would avoid stepping in that shit where their feet were all wet. Probably especially at a time like this when it's not as easy. Like you're all constantly on the go. I don't know how these people were alive. Well, these are actors.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they didn't live very long. You're lucky if you hit 50.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. Well, we played Red Dead, and they talk about it being like a young, like No Country for Old Men, the title, It's not a place for older people anymore. And when he's a bank robber at the beginning, when they reveal that, I felt like John Wayne seems way old to be a bank robber, and that is like one of the things that they don't more or less go into, but I'm also okay with it anymore. If I have questions, I'm like, whatever. I don't really care that much. Let's keep going on with the fucking story and see where it goes.
Yeah.
This movie, they said at TCM, Ford made a movie before this that did terrible. And I should remember what it is because it was like a 1947 movie. Like, they made it and it came out probably the same year.
Yeah.
But he was like, I forget how they phrased it. Since it didn't do well in the box office, he's like, fuck it, I'll make another Western then. And I think is this Warner Brothers? He had to work with a studio he doesn't normally work with because the rights for this story were owned by Warner Brothers or something. Back in the day when directors and actors were loyal to studios. Could you imagine that today?
It's craziness. I mean, you've still got, what's his name? Christopher Nolan, like, he doesn't want to work with Warner Brothers anymore, all because they didn't want to release Tenet in theaters. And that, like, ruined his relationship with them. Like, never again. I'm going to work with Universal or somebody else.
And they tried to re-release it to make him happy, but there's no making Christopher Nolan happy.
There isn't. He's just a sad man.
Yeah. Oh, very, very, very British. I was watching some interview with him, and the more that they were showing him talk, I'm like, he looks so much like Christian Bale to the point that I'm like, I wonder if he cast Christian Bale because he felt that they looked or they were similar enough. But I digress.
It's like looking in a mirror.
We're talking about two movies, and none of them are Christopher Nolan movies.
We gotta jump forward 55 years to get to the next movie. And like you said, they came out with like 5 different versions of this movie by 1948, and then there's no versions of it until 2003.
Unless, like you said, you want to count Three Men and a Baby.
Yeah, there's other ones that I guess are kind of similar. 3 Men and a Baby is just the secular version of Three Godfathers. It's the part without the Bible.
And there's Christmas versions of this too now on like Lifetime or Hallmark or something. There's 3 Men and a Wise Baby. So it's or 3 Wise Men and a Baby, I guess. I want the baby to be like a wise guy.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a wise baby, but the 3 men are idiots.
Yeah, I was over at the in-laws, and they were showing like a preview for a new Hallmark movie that was like 3 wise men and a little boy. And I'm like, oh man, they're ripping off the 3 Men and a Baby. Apparently, it's the same cast, and it's not even the new movie. It's like the sequel. They already did 3 wise men and a baby, so now they have 3 wise men and a little boy. They're really stretching this out, is what I'm trying to say. They're stretching this thin. So it does kind of come back into the wise men thing, but it's like you said, time has killed the chronological order of how this is going down, which was they made the movie, they took out the Christian elements, and then somebody over the 30 years didn't realize that that's what it was originally based on, and they thought they were a genius if they added in.
They think they're so original.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did Tokyo Godfather and or Tokyo Godfathers. There's 3 of them. Another movie by Satoshi Kon. We did Perfect Blue last time. Definitely a lot different from Perfect Blue.
Hair.
A lot less
rape and
insane and violent. Yeah, still kind of violent. Still plenty of people.
Equally depressing. Maybe more depressing.
Kill each other. It has a happy ending.
A
lot of what leads up to it is not happy. All their backstories are all pretty depressing.
Yeah, we do get backstories on all these characters. We get to the baby very fast. And yeah,
In
this
like the
one,
first 5 minutes, we have the baby in this film.
yeah, I tend to lean towards liking this new iteration of it a little bit more. And I think it came down to like I was just more emotionally invested in these characters. Like
Yeah,
they felt very realistic. They weren't full of themselves. And like I said, John Wayne just, I don't know, something takes me out of it a hair.
yeah,
And now I've
yeah.
seen,
It's good. We get more. Yeah, we get more background on who these people are and why they are the way they are. They're not bank robbers. They're just three
homeless.
homeless people that have different reasons for how they ended up being homeless.
Oh yeah, and they're pretty brutal too. I think it's just the early 2000s, I guess. Um, they like really go all out, calling the one character like a faggot as much as they possibly can. Uh, which in 2003 or sooner, because of how long it takes to make an animated movie. Yeah, all our American movies were doing the same fucking thing at the time.
Yeah,
It's not that much of a stretch.
this was before. Uh, he's a drag queen. I guess probably would have been like one of the earlier depictions of someone transgender because he does talk about like wanting to saying like, oh, I've always wanted to be a mother. Like he's not just a drag queen. It's definitely like talks about like, oh, I've always dreamed about being a woman. And I think he even says like it was God's mistake that I was born a man. It says that a few times. Like it's not just the simple like, oh, I'm a drag queen in shows. Like they referred constantly to, no, I'm a mother. I'm a woman.
Yeah, I
So
would
yeah,
say you're probably right. I'll consider this a mainstream movie because even though us Americans who think the world revolves around them, this
probably
probably
pretty
was
mainstream in Japan.
yeah, it was probably a huge movie there,
It did
and
win a bunch of awards, I
yeah,
think,
they made one of the
in Japan.
protagonists transgender, and I think we've had that in our past, but like they're not normally protagonists. Even if the characters don't mind, like we've watched a couple movies where the protagonist runs into a person like that, and though it's against the norms at the time, they're like way okay with it, which I'm like, I really appreciate that person's out there. But this was interesting too because it was at that time where like they're all friends, but the friends are probably the most brutal to each other. The way that they talk to each other, like they are really, really rough on that one. I don't know all their names because they don't name the baby that way.
The baby's Kyoko.
Yep,
They find it in the garbage.
right where babies should be.
Yeah. Right after I do that's a great moment too. I love the when they're in line at the soup kitchen and Hannah, the transgender character, tells the when she keeps saying about like oh I want to be a mother one day, and she tells the lady at the soup kitchen like you got to give me more. I'm eating for two, but like really she's referring to she wants extra food for I think her name's Miyuki, the other girl that's with them. Like she needs extra food for her, but then when they see the woman's on the bus and she sees them walking around with that baby, and she's like, oh, she was eating for two. It was like a great. I love that moment of just that woman being like, "Oh my god, was she pregnant? She has a baby now."
I do like this director. I do like his style because anything that confuses you, he explains after the fact. So like there's a scene with an angel on the street, and I'm like, what in the fuck's happening? This literally makes no sense. And then within 5 minutes, you're like, okay, that makes they
Yeah,
more or less went back and explained it without explaining it in your face.
like she's like, "Do you want my love or do you want an ambulance?" And he's like, "Yeah, you better call that ambulance."
Yeah, then the angel gets mad. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's
Yeah,
happening. Although I would
there's
honestly, if I was in that scenario, I probably would have thought it was a real angel too. Like,
yeah. there's a lot going on in this movie. I Between the two of them, I did like Three Godfathers. I think it's a good John Ford movie, but I would say that I like this one a lot more. There's definitely a lot more interesting things happening. The story unfolds with a lot more depth to it, and kind of it gets you. It feels more like a Christmas movie than Three Godfathers for sure. Just because it's like one night during the holiday season. They're always walking around and there's Christmas lights everywhere. But and everything does feel like how you said the baby changes the trajectory of their lives, and it does it in this film too, where it's not just as simple as oh they find a baby and they need to take it somewhere. Like there's moments where they keep saying the baby saves them because they're sitting in that convenience store and that guy's like, hey, people might want to sit there, so you need to leave. And they're like, just tell us we stink and we're homeless. Like, just tell us that's why you want us to leave.
That's one
And
of
they
the
all go
craziest
outside and
scenes.
start fighting each other, and that ambulance like slams through the storefront. And they're like, oh, if we weren't arguing about the baby, like we would have all just been sitting there.
And he
I
keeps
love the
it.
guy getting out too, and he's like, you need to call an ambulance.
Yeah, that's actually weird too, because they don't overly go into, uh, the baby saved us. It's a miracle, but I thought I mean that made me think of like some crazy Magnolia Paul Thomas
Yeah,
Anderson shit where they're just like things happen in life that you can't explain, and that's what it makes me think of. Where I'm like everybody wants to kick them out because they're homeless and they stink,
yeah.
and you have that one uh, patron who's like drunk and just disorderly and being such an asshole. And then they do ask them to leave, and like as they're fighting out on the street, yeah, this ambulance crashes into the building out of fucking nowhere. It's actually kind of scary. You're not really like expecting it.
Because it just slams in there.
And yeah, it would have killed them, all of them and the baby, if they had still been sitting in that spot. And
Everything. A lot of things seem to happen by chance. Like they find that guy that's like I think they don't like fully say, but I think he's supposed to be like a yakuza boss or something. The guy that's like
yeah,
under
he
his
definitely
car.
is he's definitely a
Yeah, they
Yakuza
find him
boss.
they find him under the car while they're walking down the street, which they're like, what kind of moron parks in the middle of in the middle of a street? And then they like find that guy like laying underneath his car, and it's like, please help me, I'm dying. They finally help that guy, and he's like, yeah, I forgot to put the parking brake on, and then some lady's dog ran under my car, and then it rolled over on me. And then yeah, so by chance they happen upon that guy that then he knows the club that they found a business card for that was related to the people that are the parents of this baby or they think are the parents of the baby,
Yeah,
and
there's a
then
lot of
get
detective
wrapped up in
work.
like an assassination plot at the wedding. You go to the wedding and find this guy that then
All right,
somebody
yeah, I forgot
a
about that.
Mexican assassin is there to kill the yakuza boss
That
for
assassin
from
seems like
a
as
drug
left field
cartel.
as the ambulance driving into the building. It's just like out of nowhere, this person just
Yeah,
starts shooting up.
yeah, just whips out a gun and starts firing. Yeah, then they get everyone kind of gets separated after that. Uh, but yeah, they keep having those moments where all sorts of strange things happen just because they've got that baby with them, and they kind of just keep getting wrapped up in all these odd plots that go on.
I mean,
I
and
do love when they
it gets odder. Yeah, it
yeah
keeps going.
when they find they keep trying to figure out they find where the a poster of these like two towers that are in the background of one of the pictures of these people. So they try to just use like geography to get to where the towers look like they're in the same position from the picture, and they eventually find the house, but it's it's tore down. And then I do have a scene. Is this really the place? And he walks to that front door that's the only thing still standing there in its frame, and like uses the set of keys that they have and opens it up, and he's just like, "Honey, I'm home." And then the door just collapses behind him.
Yeah, they're like they were in debt and
Gambling debts.
gambling debts. The wife was trying to help pay them off. They
And they're
did
like
basically
the
do
people
like
are
a
like the wife was beating the husband or something like that. They're like, yeah, we had to call the police, and they're like, oh, was he hitting her? And they're like, no, she was hitting him.
yeah, they're like, I saw the bruises. He beat her? No, she beat him.
They
And
get every person. They're like, hold on, maybe this person will know more, and then it starts like there's just more people keep gathering around.
yeah, when we meet both of them too, she's definitely the crazier of the two of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do meet them. I think that was some of the most amazing stuff is that they split apart and come back together, and they're in such a huge city that I don't understand exactly how they would come across each other.
it's just fate. They're
Yeah, I
fated
guess
to
so.
come back together.
Yeah.
They find the he does have that moment too. They do have scenes that are similar to Three Godfathers. Instead of finding the mother dead, he finds that he comes across that homeless guy after they split up because
Oh god, that
they
is
argue
funny.
over they argue over like how they're gonna find the girl because she's got the baby and she gets taken hostage by the assassins. So they're trying to figure out how they can find her, and they split up, and Gin, the guy, is like comes across this homeless guy and he offers him some alcohol, takes him back to his shack, and then when he like goes to close his eyes and he's like, I'm not dead yet. Like, what? It's like, come on, man, give me a little more of that alcohol first.
Funniest scene of the whole movie where he dies seemingly, and there's all these like what are they called? I want to call them windmills. The little wind.
Pinwheels.
Yeah, they're all outside, and they stop when that old man's head falls to the side. So it is literally telling us the guy is dead, and the guy Gin goes to close his eyes by just swiping his hand across his face. But when he does it, his eyes are like opened even wider than they were before, and he jumps back. He's like, "I'm not dead yet," and it's such a funny scene. It made me laugh so hard.
No.
And then he makes
Then we get a scene that's like it made me think of the Fisher King, where it's like a bunch of kids are like, we're here to clean up,
oh,
which is basically like we're gonna beat up the homeless people and stuff. And then they pull that guy out, and the one guy's like, he's like, wake up, old man, I'm gonna kill you or something. Like they're just dragging that dead body around
they
while
don't even realize he's
they're beating the
dead.
other one up. Yeah, and then they just leave.
Yeah, they're like, the girls are supposed to meet us in like a minute. They're like, oh shit, yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot. They just leave. Yeah, but then
oh god,
talk about some of their tragic backstories, like the younger girl at first when the train breaks down or the train has to stop because the tracks aren't clear because of the weather, and she looks at the other train and she sees this guy and she's like, "Oh shit." And he recognizes her too. Like then you find out that it's her is it her father or her
it's her
stepfather?
dad. Yeah,
And they had like a falling out, and by falling out I mean like she fucking stabbed him or
I think she stabbed him with a letter opener or something like that.
she like violently stabbed him.
Yeah,
But
she runs off. Then we have yeah, I do like Gin's backstory is like that he was a bike racer and he threw a race, and then he tells him his wife and child died, and then later on everything about that was a lie. It's like he worked at a bike shop, and his wife and child are very much still alive. They just left him because he was a terrible father. And you're like, I thought you were a racer. He was like, my life was a race, or he says something like that. He's like life was my race in the shop or something. They're like, and you lied about your kids dying, and he's
yeah,
like,
there's a
they
moment
were dead to
where
me. They left.
Hannah goes to the emergency room. They basically lose all their money for her treatment, and when they go to make the payment, they're like staring at each other, and the receptionist is like, "Dad." So like I just like uh, yeah, that's like the reveal that you get that he has his kid's alive, his wife's alive. His story was inconsistent too. Like he did change parts of his story as things went along, but and then what was Hannah's backstory?
I think she ran off with another guy, but oh, they do kind of like play it weird. They're like, he died, and it was like AIDS, and it was like, no, he drowned or something, or like fell and hit his head.
Yeah,
And
did
then yeah, she
Hannah
just thinks
have
she doesn't want to go back.
did Hannah have AIDS?
I don't know. You couldn't tell if that's what it was supposed to be because she's definitely sick. She keeps coughing up blood, which I
Yeah,
was like, it's
that's what I
either
thought it
that
was.
or it's like supposed to be tuberculosis or something. She keeps coughing up blood numerous times, but it never goes into what the illness is. Like they just take her to the hospital and the doctor says something about like she needs treatment, but he doesn't specifically say what's wrong.
Sounding like AIDS,
I swear it
HIV or
felt like
something.
they were saying it was supposed to be because somebody else, like I said, somebody else asks earlier. They're like, "Oh, did he die from AIDS?" Like that's a thing, but they never specifically say in the film what she has.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was thinking. After they made a point to bring that up
That
uh,
yeah, I
about
thought
the other
that's maybe
character.
what it was supposed to be. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean tuberculosis, she probably would have been coughing a hell of a lot more.
yeah,
I like our detective work. Well, it's our new show. The new format of our show is: was it tuberculosis or was it AIDS?
yeah. We'll determine it.
Tuberculosis would have been in the Three Godfathers, not this.
Yeah, that would have been the old fashioned. Tuberculosis wasn't cool in the 2000s. Nobody was getting that.
I mean, people still die of tuberculosis, but it seems less
Yeah,
common. I mean, we're even getting to a point where HIV is treatable, where you can live with it.
yeah. I do. They do get to that final chase scene that I think is also really great with they give the as they're walking down they leave Gin and they basically say Hannah says like we have to leave him so that he can be with his daughter because if he's hanging out with us like he'll just keep being a homeless bum and just stay with us, so we had to put on a show basically and say that we hated him and never want to see him again so that his daughter will feel sorry for him and want to be around him. uh and they find that woman about to jump off the bridge and they're like, "Oh, this is my baby. You can have my baby." Uh, they give it back to her pretty much, and
The
Gin sees the news
casualty of
report that's like the baby stolen, and he's like, "Wait a second."
how casual that scene is was like, I noticed it. Like they're walking along the bridge, and there's clearly a person standing on the bridge.
She
Like,
references, she's like, "If I have to give this baby up, I'm just gonna throw myself off the bridge because I'll be so depressed." As this woman's like climbing up to kill herself.
yeah, and then they like look back and they're like, "Whoa!" Like after the fact that they realize what is happening.
Yeah, but I love they do give her the baby, and they go to make prayers on Christmas, and Gin like runs through and steals a bike, and then he just goes like flying past them. He's like, "Don't give up my baby!" It's just like driving by, and
They're
they're
like,
like,
"We
"What?"
already
He's
gave
like,
up the
"We
baby. We
already gave up
found
the
the
baby." He's
mom."
like, "Yeah, like
But
we
it's
got to
not the
find that
real
baby."
mom. The baby was stolen from the
Yeah,
hospital.
they're stopping everyone that's walking around with a baby, and they're like, "Oops, wrong baby."
You gave it to the one person that will probably kill that baby.
Yeah. Yeah, so then they have to they chase out. I love she just straight up steals a truck, like like a full on like moving truck. I'm like,
And
does that woman even know how to operate that thing?
her husband or ex-husband's like a hoarder. So I thought that was interesting too. Like
She's just
he,
living in garbage.
he's living in garbage and filth, and he trips more or less Gin trips more or less on top of him. And he's like, "What are you doing in my house?" And he's and his whole thing is like, "Yeah, I'm a piece of shit, but I'm just living with it now at this point. I don't know what you
Yeah,
want from me." But he is
it is.
like
Yeah,
kind of less of a
again,
piece of shit than
it's all about the people they run into. Hannah finds that cab driver that she met earlier. It was
Mhm.
like that she was like they were like,
Describing
"What's
her
your type?"
ideal
He's like,
man.
I'm into guys that are funny and also would just say, "Oh, the heck with it," if I didn't have enough money to pay for the full fare. And they
She
find that
just
guy again, and it's like, I'm gonna need you to drive faster. And he's like, I can't drive faster. No, drive faster. You have to.
Yeah, that is funny where she's describing him to a T. Like, I like this very particular boxy haircut for the back of the head, and the guy starts blushing. So maybe things work out for those two. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily when this is supposed to take place. Did you pick up on that? It's modern, but modern could still be like a decade or two behind. I don't,
I mean, it was 2003, so I think it was still. I think it would have been modern to the time. Like nobody really has. You don't see anyone using cell phones in the movie, so it could have been like a little bit earlier in the 90s. Like everyone's still using payphones, but it's definitely pre-smartphone. So it's, I guess, yeah, 90s to early
Oh yeah, I think I
2000s.
do
I
see a
think
phone,
was
but it's probably like a cordless house phone or something.
yeah. I don't think pretty much a lot of most people were just using like the payphones in this movie a lot. It's another one where this movie's already dated. It's only 21 years old, and it's already there's probably people that would watch this and be like, "What is that thing she's using? Why are there's a booth with a phone hanging in it? What's that thing?"
Hey, I'm gonna age us greatly. That's just what keeps happening. Now everybody puts the stuff on the internet where it's like, hey, that thing that you really liked as a kid that you don't think's old, it's way old, and let me tell you
It's really
why.
old.
Like, what was the Vice City thing I saw where the guy's like, "Oh, you're going retro with Vice City," and then he's like, "When that game came out in 2002, and it took place in 1986, that it was closer to 1986 than the release date to now." Now it's
Yeah,
been 20 years instead of like the 13 years or whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah. But then they end up saving that baby, and like I said, this one does have a more optimistic ending. They don't two of the people in the group don't die. They all survive, and it's also we get the for everything being a miracle and them all getting connected together because of the baby. We see earlier the old man that dies, the homeless guy, like gives Gin that envelope, and he's like, "Here, I need you to hold this for me." And then when they're talking about the baby being kidnapped, you also see the news story about like rare lottery where all the numbers were ones for
mhm.
the entire lottery, and we see that that's the ticket that he got from that old man was like in an envelope that he has in his pocket. They don't show them discover it, so I guess it's like left as like later they'll probably see that they had the winning ticket and
Or they
they'll win the
never
big the
cashed it
big
in. They
prize.
lost it, never realized they won.
They have that the dad, the police officer father that the girl stabbed is there with the parents of the baby, and they're like,
The
we want
dad
to
police officer that the
we
girl
want to
stabbed.
yeah.
It's a great character description.
So
Accurate
it's a
though.
great yeah. That's how we know. Which yeah, he puts a thing in the newspaper earlier that she finds in that rotted out house. That's because it's I guess it's assumed that she stabbed the dad because she thought the dad like threw her cat away or something like that, or when it seems like the cat like maybe ran off or something, and she thought that they like got rid of the cat. He puts the thing that's like the cat came
Good
back,
reason to
like
stab somebody.
pretty much, yeah.
I do
Those,
like
those
though this.
parents want to make them the Godfathers.
Yes, that's
That's
exactly
how
what
it
I was gonna
ends.
say. That I like because they bring it up at the end, where I've actually thought at first that they're like, we just want to meet these homeless people that saved our kid, and
That guy's like, they're homeless. They smell.
yeah, they're pretty
They're like, we
gross. Are
don't
you sure
care.
you want to do this? And they're like, we want to make them our children's godfathers. And you never see them go in because the movie pretty much ends right then and there. But I do like the idea that the Godfather title it's earned. It's earned by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's an improvement over Three Godfathers because
It's just these
they're
three
like,
random guys I just met.
yeah,
We'll
they
make
might
you the
be terrible for your
Godfathers.
baby. I mean, the town thought that they like raped and killed you, lady, so
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
they
Like I
did. And
said, I
John
think
Wayne said,
it's,
take that shit out of the script.
yeah. Yeah. They're both good movies, but yeah, I would say between the two of them, yeah, I definitely enjoyed Tokyo Godfathers. I think it is a much more it is a much more satisfying story overall. Definitely getting more into those characters, their backgrounds. It feels like they earn because they all feel like they need redemption for something. Whereas it's pretty basic in Three Godfathers that their redemption is like, oh, we're bank robbers. Like that's all their backstory really is. They're not really clearly defined characters.
Yeah, they don't want to go back and try to explain anything more about them, or the little bit that we do know is that just a very little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a thing that I think bothers me the most in comparison is that they're bank robber. They go from bank robbers to people that saved this baby and the town forgives them. Or I mean, the only one that's alive, John Wayne, they forgive Bob. They forgive him. So like the character arc is kind of like based on career and what the person's doing. And then this movie, Tokyo Godfathers, is more based on like it goes in. It doesn't feel weird that the way that they go back to explain what's going on with these people, but they're very open, honest, and real about everything throughout the entire movie. That even if you did like, you get that they're down on their luck because they're homeless, obviously, but their redemption story just is a lot more satisfying. And I think that's why. I think it's because we don't really get much more of like, I don't know why Ford doesn't want to get emotional. He wants
But
to
yeah.
keep his John Wayne macho.
Yeah. He can't be a wimp.
So when's our next Three Godfathers iteration of this story?
I
Or
mean,
is it the
maybe
Three Wise
another.
Men and a Little Boy?
It's Three Wise Men and the Little Boy. We've already got it. That'll be next year's Christmas movie. We'll cover the Hallmark
Well, you know
version.
what? They're probably making one more, so there'll be three of them, so we could do the Wise Men trilogy.
But yeah.
But that was a good Christmas pick. I think all the other Christmas movies I've watched so far this year have been things that I've seen before.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I wanted to change it up a little bit there, throw something else out there. Yeah, I hadn't watched either of these movies before, so I just knew
Um,
they were connected.
I have all Khan's movies, but I did not see. I have one of his TV shows. I can't remember what it's called. I know it's behind me somewhere. I think it's like Paranormal something.
Yeah,
That one I didn't watch because I know it's like a 10 episode, a couple hours long thing.
yeah. I think he's good. He like I haven't seen anything from him that I haven't liked so far.
I thought you were gonna say I haven't seen anything from him in a while because
I haven't seen anything else.
he
I haven't watched
he's
a single other movie.
he's deceased now, so he's not making
Yeah,
movies
he
anymore.
can't. He's not making any more.
And I think for the most part, this looks really good. Some of the animation, the CG is a little weird, doesn't work right, but
Yeah, I think it said this was like an early anime to use to add like computer generated elements to it. So it probably feels a little. Some of the stuff feels a little dated just because it was still relatively new at the time. Still, most animes were still using all cell drawings and stuff like that. So this was like one of the earliest ones to start using like throwing CG in there.
yeah, and probably the opposite of Miyazaki, who 2003 I think was like Spirited Away, right?
That, yeah, I think that would have been 2002 2003.
Wow. And I'll bring it up. It's not original. I hear everyone talk about it all the time, but there are shots in this movie that don't look like animation at all. Like it'll be like Tokyo. There's a shot
Oh
of
yeah,
Tokyo Tower. There's a couple shots of just Tokyo in general, and
there
it
was
just
stuff that I was like, is that like an actual like? Did they put like an actual frame of like real world footage? There were some moments that I thought, especially like you're saying, like the exterior shots or like cityscape shots that look like it's just straight up a picture of Tokyo at night.
Yeah, like if you took a picture, it would look almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
So holy hell, hell yeah! And this is his most mainstream movie too. Like this is his most grounded.
With the not really any like sci-fi or psychological horror elements or anything.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is out there, but it falls into the theme of like fate. Is like how often that they run into the same people. Because yeah,
Yeah.
you bring it up, but it's reoccurring. They keep running into the same people again and again and again.
And like maybe like the most fantastical elements, like the very end when the woman's gonna jump off the building with the baby, and Hannah like catches the baby because she jumps over the edge, and she grabs onto that banner that gets like a sudden wind gust out of nowhere that like holds it and keeps it afloat so she can softly land on the ground.
Yeah, that's fucking cool. I like
Yeah.
that. Because it seems a little bit different. I feel like I haven't seen it before where what broke the fall was the wind that blew up the banner that she was holding on to.
Yeah.
I felt like
It's good to I like that
usually
moment too when they're going to catch. It feels like it makes me think of the Grinch like trying to pull the sleigh back up over the hill, because that woman goes to jump and Miyuki like grabs her, and then she starts to slip forward and Gin grabs onto her, so they're like all just dangling off the side of the building, and then she slips and drops the baby, and Hannah just leaps over the side of the building to catch that baby.
I mean, when that
And
baby
you're
gets
like,
dropped,
I don't know how she's gonna like.
It gets real dark for a second there. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
I felt like, are they gonna let this baby die?
Is that baby gonna die? Like, what's gonna happen? Yeah.
Also, like here, you convinced me take the baby. It's like both of that woman's arms are holding you right now, so they can't take that baby. But it's enough babies, I guess, for 1 year.
Yeah.
And you picked these movies, so thank you for curating our Christmas movies this year. And this is the last episode of the year, and then we're moving into kind of a new setup, I guess. I'll explain it.
Whatever other stuff we're doing, yeah.
Whatever other stuff we're doing. I'll put it this way. We'll probably be a new episode out within 2 weeks, and I don't know what it is yet.
That is true.
That's more or less the experiment.
That's a fact.
So I'll explain the experiment in the beginning of the episode, and we'll go from there for what our new format is. And thanks for listening. Thanks for another good year. Well, a good year for people that are listening to our episodes. Not a good, not, typically awful year that just, every year just gets worse and worse. But as far as you listening to there's been growth, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys listening. And we'll see you next year.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.